Hi, I'm Camelia from Calcedonia Sewing, and in this video you'll see a tutorial to sew your own Chelsea cardigan from designer stitch patterns. For the end product will be this cardigan, which is already done. For my cardigan I've used a Ponte knit fabric with it has only horizontal stretch. It's a double face with two good sides. On one side is a mustard color and the back side is black, so I used this as a good side and the black as the back side of the cardigan. The tutorial is starting with interfacing the shoulders and the neck area. I skipped the cutting of the pieces, but if you have any questions there, please be free to put your questions in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. So I've done my best to explain all the steps. If you find something that is unclear or something like that I will try to explain if you put your questions. And also in this tutorial, the big difference with the instructions is that I'm using for the attaching the collar, I am not closing, because in the instructions you should attach the collar on this side and then turn it and stitch it by hand here. But for my version I used a back method, so everything is attached by machine, and only on the back side here at the neck you have a very small piece of the collar that is top stitched. But everything is, if you do it neatly, is not a big deal, and if you don't do it very neatly, it's also not a big deal, because the color is falling down over and you'll not see anything. So I hope you'll get a lot of use from this tutorial. Again, if there are problems, I'll be happy to help you with your questions. Put them here in the comments, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Happy sewing! The first step, it will be reinforcing the shoulders, the back shoulders and the back neck. You need to remember that the seam allowance in this pattern is 6 millimeters. So you need to keep in mind my seam tape was 1 centimeter wide. So for the neck, because I want to have a clean finish here at the back, also on the inside, I trimmed a little bit off from the seam tape, so now I have it around the 6 millimeters as the width of the seam allowances. Also, when you do that, and if you use this kind of seam tape with a row of stitches, of reinforcing stitches in it, it's a good thing to remember that this row of stitches needs to stay in the seam, and don't put it too much on the outside that is going to be trimmed away, because you are going to lose the purpose of this row of stitches. So the back shoulders are now reinforced, the back neck, and now I can go on with the front facing to finish. The front has a small cut on facing here, and this is the next step I'm going to do. So to do that, here is my piece, and I'm going to show only a little bit because I don't have enough ironing table here to show the complete piece. But the idea is that you turn one time 2 centimeters. The complete width of that this facing is 4 centimeters. So I'm going to fold one time 2 centimeters from the top all the way to the hem, of course, from here all the way to here, and then to finish it, you don't need to finish this edge in advance. You can leave it like this because it's going to get enclosed, because this we are going to turn one time more, and this is going to be the finish edge of the cardigan, like here. So this is getting one time more folded, and I'm going to meet you at the sewing machine, where I will top stitch this in place. Okay, now we are at the machine, at the sewing machine. I'm going to stitch this with a normal straight stitch. I'm going to use a slightly bigger stitch length 3, and I also lowered the thread tension and the pressure foot pressure on my machine. I did a few test stitches on a scrap of fabric. Always do that, it's very helpful. And after doing this, I chose the settings on my machine. So of course you can sew this also from the inside if you are happy how the stitches are looking. I'm happy with my machine, but I want to do it from the good side. And I know I have here 2 centimeters, so I'm going to align this with 3/4 of an inch, and that is 1.8 millimeters, so almost 2, to have the stitches just barely on the edge of my fold. I'm going to start stitching. You don't need to go too fast. Keep everything in place and straight. Take a look. I don't know if you can see that. Everything is getting sewn. That's a good thing. And you know, if you are skipping something, you can always go back and pick and do it again. Let's take a look. Everything is looking fine. It's getting. I'm just next to the fold. I'm going to continue also all the way to the hem, also to the other side of the front, and then I'm going to meet you back at the serger for sewing the shoulder seams. Before attaching the shoulder seams, I think it's a good place to put, or a good time to attach also the pocket bags. I'm going to align. You have on the bodice pieces, the front and the fronts and the back, you have for the pockets 1 notch, and you have the corresponding notch somewhere in the middle of the pocket edge. So these notches are getting aligned like so. I'm going to use a pin to keep it in place, and I'm going to serge it from here to here. This is also going to finish this edge of the pocket. So I'm just going to go to the serger. So this process is going to be repeated for the other side of the back and the 2 fronts also. And because the seam allowance on this pattern is 6 millimeters, and this is a little bit also the distance from my needles to the knife on my serger, I don't need to trim anything, and I know that if I'm going to keep this seam like so just going next to the knife, and I'm not cutting anything, I know that I'm sewing, or I'm serging with a 6 millimeters seam allowance. And this is getting serged. I'm going to put my differential feed on a little bit higher. And I'm going to stop because I'm at the end of my pocket. I'm going to put it to the side, and this piece is also done. I'm going to, and you can see it here, how it's done. I'm using for the first needle, for the left needle, I'm using a mustard color to match the main fabric, because this needle is coming, of course, here. So if it's something wrong with my tension, in this case it's not, but it's always a good place to put a matching thread in your serger. So I'm going to repeat this process for the other 3 pocket bags, and then I'm going to sew the shoulder seams. Okay, I have my pocket bags sewn on the front and the back, and now I want to attach my shoulder seams. To do that, I have so I'm going to attach the right sides together. Of course, here is the back with the right side up. Again, I'm using as a right side the yellow side, and the black side of the fabric is the wrong side in my case. So I'm going to, I have the back bodies facing up, and I'm going to attach the first front piece. So this will be the right front, right sides together and matching my shoulder seams. And this I'm going to sew on my serger with a 6mm seam allowance. I'm going to sew from the shoulder to the neck. Of course, also in this case I don't need to trim anything because I know that the seam allowance is only 6mm. You know, and if you are trimming like a 1mm or something like that, it's really not a big deal. And this is the seam that it get sewn. As you can see, here you can see my seam tape on the back of my shoulder, but when I'm going to press this seam, I'm going to press it to the back and it's going to cover that seam. You're not going to see anything even on the inside. Of course, I'm going to repeat also for the other front, and I have it here somewhere, I think. Yes, it's here. And after sewing the other shoulder seam, we can go have fun with attaching the collar. And as I said, the method I'm using is no hand stitching method. So everything is getting sewn with the sewing machine. And now we put again right sides together, and starting from the shoulder point, everything needs to be aligned correctly. I'm going to sew this in place. Again, I have the differential feed on my machine here. I have it on 1.3. Normally I'm using it on neutral, but now I'm using it on 1.3 because my fabric is very stretchy, and using it, putting it a bit higher is compressing the fabric, it's not stretching it anymore. So I get a nice seam without waves or anything. So I don't know where my small scissors are. Okay, so this is also stitched in place, and now I'm going to go to the pressing station. I'm going to press it up to the back, and this is going to cover also here the seam tape. Okay, now I am at my pressing station, and I want to press the seam, the shoulder seams I just sewn. And for that I'm going to use my pressing hem, and I have also this pressing roll, I think it's called, that I'm using all the time for pressing seams on you know, longer side seams or seams on trousers, on pants. So for this case I'm going to use the pressing hem. Okay, I'm going to press this as sewn, so flat, with a little bit of steam. I'm using my hands a lot when I'm pressing, and you know, if you are familiar with a clapper, I don't have a clapper, but I have a piece of wood that is also hard wood, and is also very good to use if you don't want to burn your hands. Okay, so the next step is to press these seams towards the back. In my case it's going to be this way. Give it a little bit of a pull. And this is going to stay like this. And this is on the right side. Okay, repeating for the other side. Putting nice and flat. Give it a little bit of a tug. And here it is. Okay, this is nice and pressed. And it's going to get sewn like this, so you are not going to see that seam tape that is inside here. To give you a little bit more orientation, this is the collar piece that is getting cut on the fold, and this is the long edge that I'm going to name in the instructions. This is the longer edge and this is the short edge. The longer edge is getting attached on the garment, and the short edge of the collar is actually this edge. This is the shorter edge, this is the longer edge. This is of course where the collar is getting folded. So I'm going to, you need to keep in mind that also here the seam allowances all over the collar are 6 millimeters, and I'm going to attach my collar using the sewing machine, not the serger. If you, I think you can apply the same technique also using your serger, but of course you'll get more thread in it, and I don't think it's necessary. On this moment we have here the fronts and the back. They are sewn together or serged together at the shoulder seams. Shoulder seams are attached, and now we are ready. And also, of course, the edges, the front edges, are finished. And now we are going to attach our collar. To do that, we are going to work, of course, as you can see, from the inside of the garment, and we are going to attach the collar with the right side of the collar on the wrong side of the garment. And here we have it. And now the very important step is to you must not align the shorter edge. This is the shorter edge of the collar. You must not align the shorter edge with the front edge. What you need to do, because later you have to close this short edge and you need to have a little bit of a seam allowance, you need to come 6 millimeters out at the front, something like this. I think I have here around 6 millimeters. Let's see. Yeah, something like this. You can see here my collar is sticking out a little bit, and this you need to have for the second step. So I have here on my collar also a small at the center small notch that I'm going to align with the notch on the back. As you can see, the 2 notches are getting aligned. And the next step is to pin this together if you want, or to align it just together with the edge of your front and the back all the way around. And of course to the other side here, of course here you also have to put the collar 6 millimeters out from the edge, from the front edge. And this seam allowance, you'll use it in the next step. Okay, the next step is to sew this by machine. Of course, keeping the 6 millimeters seam here. I had to move my machine a little bit from my usual place, so I need to get used with sewing this rather uncomfortable position. I'm using a yellow thread to to give you the possibility to see better what I'm doing. At this moment we have our collar is sewn on the wrong side of the garment, as you can see, with a 6mm seam allowance, and on both ends we have a little bit of a fabric sticking out from the front edge. This is the shorter edge of the collar, and I'm going to give this a little bit of a press and a sew, and then I'll come back to go to the second step of this collar sewing, and that will be closing the short ends of the collar. Okay, so the collar is attached to the inside of the garment, the right side to the wrong side of the garment, and the next step is to close this short edge of the collar. To do that, we are going to fold the collar with the right sides together, and then we need to sew this short edge. To do that, we are going to use, of course, 6mm seam allowance. I'm going to sew it with my sewing machine, and it's very important that at this point here that you are not getting that you are not getting any stitches on this edge, but just next to this front, and then you will get a very nice sharp and continuous edge here. I'm going to do that on the machine, and I'm going to repeat for the other side of the collar, and I'm going to meet you back for step 3 on bagging the collar. At this moment I have the short edge stitched, and I just want to show you something. As I told you, it's very important to have your stitches running just next to this front edge, because when you are going to turn the collar, you want to have a continuous edge like here, and not a corner that is sticking out, or that your edge is going to fold a little bit in. That is not looking nice. So in order to get such a straight edge running from the center, from the front edge in the collar, you have to stitch just next to this edge when you are stitching the shorter edge of the collar. But after I stitched my first row of stitches, I realized that was not, it was missing like 1 millimeter, and that was not what I wanted. So I just came from a few centimeters higher, going again back and trying to get even closer to this edge, and that's why I have here an extra row of stitches, but that is really okay. So now is the tricky part. Until now you could also use the instructions. I mean, there are exactly the same steps that you have in the instructions that came with your pattern. So from now the next 2 steps are the ones that are different. At this moment, to give you a little bit orientation, so we are still on the back of the garment. This is the back of the garment, and this is the collar that is attached, as you see here, with the first row of stitches we did on the longer edge. And now we have sewn the shorter edge, but we don't turn anything out. We are still right sides together of the collar, and we are going to get to the next step of bagging the collar. To do that, what we need to do, we need to meet this long edge that is still free with the long edge that we already attached on the other side. So to do that, we need to push this side a little bit away. We need to bring the garment, and I'm going to lay a little bit free here. Okay, this is our front side, front panel, and we need to bring this one, we need to bring it in the collar, into the collar. You roll it a little bit until you are revealing this edge. It's very important that you are doing this and you're watching this also when you are doing it, so you have your piece in front of you and you'll see that it's making a lot of sense. And then we have the garment here rolled in the collar, sandwiched, or you know, tucked in. And now the only thing we need to do is to align these two edges. This long edge of the collar that is still free with this, you see, this is the other side of the collar that is get attached here in the first step on the, it did get attached to the garment. So now we are bringing this together. The garment is good tucked in, and what we need to do, what we are going to do, we are going to stitch again following the first row of stitches we did. And so we are going to attach the two long edges, you see, and we are going to pin, of course, following the first row of stitches. That's why I also used yellow in this case and not black, to be sure that you're seeing what I'm doing. So again, the collar, the garment, and the other side of the collar are getting pinned together. And as we go, we are pushing the garment inside, and you will get like a big sausage, as you see. Like so. And here is the garment is pushed. Here you have your shoulder seam. Let me put it here. Here is the shoulder seam. And what we try to do, we want to show just past the shoulder seam. So we are continuing matching these two edges, like so. Trying to keep a little bit everything in place. Not if you want to pull a little bit to get your garment laying a little bit flatter inside, because this is depending on the fabric you are using. If your fabric is a bit bulkier, you could have here a bulkier piece, of course. So don't push anything. The idea is only to get these two seams together. You see here a piece of my garment is trying to get in the seam, but I'm pushing it back to get this nice, these seams nice laying flat together. And as I'm approaching the shoulder seam here, I'm going to put one pin more, I think, like so. And I'm going to repeat for the other side too. So at this moment, let me zoom out a bit. At this moment I have half of my collar is pinned together, and I'm going to sew from this side to here, just passing the shoulder seams, following the previous stitching line. It's very important that you are staying in the stitching line. So I'm going to repeat for the other side. Again, we are on the same step as on the previous step. This is the front, this is the shorter edge that we just closed, and now we want to put this a little bit on the side, bring the garment into the collar, rolling it, and to get the other seam. And then we are going to put these seams together. And also here we are going to get a big you see, we are going to get a full piece here with the garment and the collar together. So the garment is tucked in. It's very important to feel with your fingers that nothing is getting in your way. And you see, you don't need to pull anything or stretch, everything needs to match nice. And as I said, depending on the thickness of your fabric, maybe you cannot go as far as I can, because you'll get in this here inside, you'll get of course almost most of your front panel. So if your fabric is a little bit bulky, maybe you'll not be able to get all the way to the shoulder seam. But that is also not so important, because when you are going to you are stitching this in such a manner that when your color is finished, it's going to roll to the outside, so all this is going to fall under the collar, so you are not able to see it. But of course it's much easier to stitch it like this than to close the gap later, but I will show you in a minute also how you need to do that. So now I'm approaching here on the shoulder seam, and you can see it's getting a little bit hard to do here things, so I'm really just going to go and stop just 1 centimeter after the shoulder seams. I hope I can get so far. So my seams are matching, and now I have this shape. This is what we have at this moment, and this is the garment. Here is here is the back that is still hanging free. That's why it's important to have maybe only the shoulder seams attached and the side seams free, because like this you don't need to bunch even more fabric in your collar. So the side seams, so it's important to have the side seams open. So what we need to do now, we need to attach these two pieces, this half of this part of the collar and the other part also together, and then the rest we'll have this part here. This is a gap that we'll have over on the center back that we need to top stitch in the next step. So now I'm just going to sew this. I'm going to set the machine and I'm going to meet you back. I'm going to sew it again with my sewing machine, following the first row of stitches. So what I'm trying to do is to stay on that row of stitches, or if it can happen, of course, that you cannot stay exactly on it because this fabric is moving, is elastic. But I think I prefer to make the mistake going to the left than going to the right, because if I go to the left, to the garment side, then I'll have no stitching showing. But if I'm going to the right, then I have the chance that the first row of stitches is going to show, and I'm pretty sure I made here and there a bit of mistake, and I'll show you what I mean. So make the mistake to the left and not to the right. You know, actually you need to be as accurate as possible, but you know, it can happen. And we don't need to worry about every single stitch to be perfect. You also need to enjoy this process. Maybe you are going to say, this woman is crazy, she's sewing with a straight stitch, but you know, I sewn, this is the 4th cardigan I'm making, and I think on 2 of the other ones I did sew with a straight stitch, and they are holding good also in the washer. I'm not worried about it. These points are getting no tension when worn, so I think it's okay. But you know, if you're worried, you can do this with a very narrow zigzag. It's your choice, or with the serger. But I cannot imagine to have two rows of serging in this place. So I think sewing machine straight stitch is a safe choice. Okay, we are done. Let's see what we have here. This is on this side here, and this is the double row of stitches we have. And as you can see here, I have a little bit of a of going off the road here too, but I assure you it's going to be okay now. Okay, so now we have our color closed for the most of it, at least. So we have the short edges, we have the edges we did just show here, just past the shoulders. Here we have the shoulders, here, here and here, and we have now like a crazy pair of pants. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a press, as shown. Not too much, just a little bit. And here also. And now we can turn out our color. We are just going to push the things out. In a moment we are going to take care that our corners are also nice and pressed. So you are just pulling the fronts out. So let's see, where is my cape? Is going to be here in the center back. As you can see, I have a stick that I'm using to turn my corners. I'm not really trimming anything here, because if you are trying to form a little bit the fabric, everything is going to stay to be sharp. You don't need to trim anything. I'm going to repeat for the other side, just reaching through this hole I still have here. And you know, this is a knit fabric, and maybe if your fabric is a little bit bulkier, you are not even able to get a really sharp corner. So let's see. The next step is now to give this a little bit of a press, because you want to have a sharp edge on our color, and I'm going to press it from the underside of the collar, because this is going to flip. So this is how you are going to wear it. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a press. And if you are worried about your fabric, it's always a good idea to use a pressing cloth. I have here a piece of silk organza, and look how nice is this edge. This is going to get worn like this. What I think is nice to do when you are at this point, because your collar is going to be worn like this, I think it's a nice idea to try to get this seam, to get it a little bit under, that when you are wearing your cardigan, that this seam is not going to show. To do that, you can push the fabric a little bit to the back and favor the seam a little bit to the underside. Not too much, try not to press, to over press or to stretch, because then you are going to get completely the wrong results. So this is one side, and I'm going to repeat for this side. Also here everything is looking fine, with the edge in the right spot, and I should try to favor this immediately on the good side. Okay, this one is also done, and when it's worn it's going to be like so. Okay, now we can go on with our closing our collar. As you can see, at this moment the color is this one, and here you have at the center back a small hole or a gap or a piece of the garment that is not closed. First of all, before we get to close this edge, I think is a good point to give your color a good press, especially on this edge that we just sewn. And to do that, first I'm going to press it from this side, and I think it's a good idea to use my pressing cloth. So give a little bit of a tug and get this seam pressed up to the collar. You cannot get it pressed down, but you need to push it to go naturally so. And then you are going to come from the other side and repeat the process. And also again try to pull it a little bit to get here a nice edge. And then of course give this a nice edge, nice press, I should say. And look how nice is your color at this moment. Okay, I'm going to repeat the pressing on this long edge all over the length of my color, and then I'm going to finish this. We are at the last step on sewing our color. As you can see here, so we have here the color that is already attached on both sides, on both the long sides of the color are attached. We are only left with a small gap here on the back, on the outside, because we attached the collar first all the way around to the inside. So here we have a gap, and to close this is very easy. Of course you can close it by hand if you want to, but you can also close it completely by machine. To do this, we are going to press this seam a little bit. I know I'm not using my pressing cloth, but it's okay. It's more giving a little bit of steam to press the seam into the collar. And then we also need to press on this edge of the collar. We need to press 6mm seam allowance. We need to press it in. Let's see. It's kind of naturally folding. Okay, and now the last step is to press to bring this pressed edge just over this stitching line here. So just to cover it up. So we are going to bring it over, taking care that everything is laying flat, like so, and pinning. I'm going to put it here, maybe you can see better. Then again 6mm just over that stitching line. And then again continue over the complete length. Try not to fold too much, because otherwise maybe your color is going to get a little bit twisted. So if you had to ease a little bit of the first time the color in, the first edge you've sewn, maybe you will have to stretch that a little bit and to accommodate this seam to get everything laying flat. Try not to pin into my pressing hem, because then I cannot take this out. Okay, so everything is pinned in place. I want to take a look on the inside to see how my pins are looking. Let's see. This is the inside of the collar. You can still see a little bit of my seam tape here, but it's not a big deal. So the next step is to run a row of stitches or top stitching. Let me orient it good for you to see. So this is the color, this is the back bodice, and here I have that gap that I need to close. And to do that, I'm going to run a row of stitches, top stitching here just next to the fold in order to sew this gap closed. And this is how our collar is completely closed. As you can see, this is the back, where you can see only a small row of stitches. And because this color is, you know, is matching with the rest of the garment, it's very hard to see. Okay, so by closing the gap in the back of the neck here, as you can see, the small row of top stitching we did. Now we have the collar completely attached, completely closed. The next step, because we still have the side seams open, the next step for me is to, I have here my pocket bags already attached in the previous step. So I want to understitch the pocket bags on the seam allowance to be sure that they are staying inside and not folding out every time, like I show you in my review video. I'll put a link here where on this cardigan the pockets wants to roll out. So if I'm going to understitch here, and if you are going to try this too, to understitch this to the seam allowance, you will see that you have here much sharper edge. So this is what I'm going to do now with a regular straight stitch on my sewing machine on all 4 pocket bags. And after that we can go further with the seam, with the side seams. So to understitch the pockets, you just need to press the pockets to the pocket bag to the side. Let me put it here. Yeah, this is the pocket bag, and this is the body of the cardigan. The seam allowance is pressed to the pocket side, and now we are going to understitch, and by that we are going to stitch that seam allowance to the pocket bag. And to do that, I'm using regular straight stitch on my sewing machine. I just lengthened the stitch a little bit. I'm using a 3 millimeters stitch, and I'm going to sew, I think it's 2 or 3 millimeters away from this seam. I'm using one of the grooves on my presser foot to and that I'm follow one of these lines of my presser foot aligned with this seam, and then I know that I'm sewing an even 3 millimeters from the fold. Cut the threads, and let's take a look. As you can see, this is completely stitched, so the seam allowance is stitched now to the pocket bag. You can see here this row of yellow stitches is what I just did. And now your pocket is, you have here very sharp edge, and your pocket is going to stay nice inside. I'm going to continue for the other pocket bags, and I'm going to meet you on the next step. Now you have 2 possibilities. You can either sew your sleeves flat into the armholes, and then to sew to close the side seams with the sleeves in one go, or you can close first. You can sew the side seams and separately the sleeve of your sleeve, and then insert your sleeve into the garment, into the armholes. This is also the way that is instructed in when you get to the Chelsea cardigan. But I'm going to use the flat method, and for that I'm going to use my serger, also for the sleeve and also to complete the side seams. The only thing, if you are going to use this, you need to be careful that at the pockets you need to pivot a little bit, that you are not cutting too much into the garment if you are doing this directly with the serger. But the seam allowance is only 6 millimeters, so it's not so difficult to do, but I don't recommend it if you are not really sure on your hand with the serger. So maybe you need to close first the pockets, maybe a little bit coming from the side seam a little bit, and then all the pocket with the sewing machine, and then coming in one go with the serger to finish up the seams. I'm going to move the cam and I'm going to meet you at the serger. Now I'm at the moment where I want to attach the sleeve into the armhole. Of course you need to be careful that you are putting the right sleeve into the right armhole, and to do that you need to be sure that if you are going to put the sleeve right sides together with the bodice, with the rest of the garment, that you will get the same notches on the same sides. So in this case I have 2 notches for the back, needs to meet 2 notches on my sleeve, and this is what I have. So this is correct. I have the good sleeve into the good armhole. What I just noticed is that I forgot to put a very important notch in this sleeve to transfer it from the pattern, and that was the shoulder notch. This is what I forgot to put on my sleeve, and to do that I think that is one of maybe the most important notch that you need to transfer from your pattern, to be sure that your sleeve is going to hang straight from your shoulders. So to do that I'm going to align my pattern piece back into my my sleeve, my sleeve into the, I'm going to put it back onto the pattern piece, and I'm going to transfer the small notch. You need to remember also that because this pattern has only 6 millimeters seam allowance, you must not make your notches too deep. I'm going to do also for the other sleeve. Okay, so at this moment I have my sleeve pinned a little bit into my armhole, that you can get the idea. So the seam, the back notches, the shoulder seam, very important, and the front notch, and again the side seam. Now I'm going to go directly to my serger, and I'm going to serge this, and I'm always sewing with the sleeve directly on the or with the sleeve under, so that the sleeve is coming on the dog feet. As I said, you can baste it first, you can sew with your sewing machine, but I think if you sew it with your sewing machine, try to use a stretch stitch, because in the armhole you have of course a little bit of a tension there, and it's nice to have a stretch seam also. Okay, so our sleeve is attached directly with the serger machine. Let's see what we have. This is the sleeve seam. Everything is looking nice. No bumps, no gathers. Everything is looking very nice. I'm going to do the same for the other sleeve. And then I'm going to give this a little bit of a press, and then I can close my side seams together with the pockets and the sleeve seam. Okay, so my sleeves are both sewn flat into the armholes. As you can see, everything is looking very nice and very flat, no lumps and no gathers or any other ugly edges. Everything is looking very nice. I'm going to press the seam a little bit, as you can see it here. I'm going to press it to the sleeve to get the, you know, if you press it to the sleeve, you get like a small, you know, like a really tiny sleeve head. But you can see the sleeve is looking a little bit, the cap sleeve is looking a little bit fuller, much better than if you should press it to the inside. I think is a very big difference. So I'm going to press this a little bit to the sleeve, and to press it nice, or to be able to press it, I'm using my self-made Tailor board with my self-made hem. Very useful for this at this moment. And I'm going to press. This is the sleeve. This is the seam that I want to press to the sleeve. I don't need to press it all the way around, I think. You see, I give a little bit of a tug, that I want to have here the seam very good stretched, or, you know, sharp. Let's see what we have. This aside. And we have now a very nice sleeve. As you can see, this is from the back. Okay, so I'm going to repeat also for the other sleeve, to press the seam a little bit to the sleeve side, and then I'm going to meet you on when we are going to sew the side seam with the pocket and the sleeve seam in one go on the serger. Okay, the next step, and we are almost done with our cardigan, is to close the side seam together with the pocket, and all the way here closing also the sleeve seam. We have a few points to match here, and one of them is at the hem. Of course, the pockets. Here is the pocket opening. Here we are not going to sew, we are going to sew around. And this is the point where I said that maybe it's going to be difficult to get with your serger if you are not really used to working on your serger. So maybe you can sew from here to make with your sewing machine first a few centimeters stitching and closing these points of the pockets, and then coming with your serger to finish the seam. So a few pins to keep everything in place. Of course, we are sewing right sides together, so sewing from the back side. Here is the underarm seam that we want to get these seams matching very nice, and then all the way to the hem sleeve. I am going to pin also the other side, and I'm going to meet you at the serger. Now we are at the last, one of the last parts from constructing our cardigan, and so we need to do the hems. The hem at the bottom of the cardigan, and also the sleeve hem. I'm using 3 centimeter hem allowance. I think this is also what is used in the pattern. Let me take a look. In the pattern, they used 2.5 centimeters, but I'm using a 3 centimeter for the sleeve and also 3 centimeter for the bottom. You have for this, you have of course a few possibilities. You can sew it with a zigzag stitch, as I did it in my 2 of my other cardigans. because in this case it's almost impossible to see the stitches because of the, you know, the color of the fabric. So I used here a small zigzag stitch because it's still a little bit stretchy and you cannot see it. But in this case I don't think that the zigzag stitch is going to look nice. So especially for the sleeve hem, if you want to have a little bit of a stretch in your hem, I think it's a good idea to use maybe double needle, and then you get a stretchy seam. Or if you have a cover stitch machine. I have a cover stitch machine, but I don't love it. It's especially on thinner knits, I don't like it how it's sewing, or maybe I don't know how to adjust the settings. But I made a few test stitches here and I think it's looking okay. I'm not trying to get exactly on the edge, but if it's not going at the edge, I'm going to trim later what is out of this seam. I think the ideal is to get it like this, but if I'm going to get it a little bit out, is okay. I'm just going to trim it. So I'm going to give it a try with my cover stitch, and if I'm not satisfied, I can always take it out and then go with a double needle on my sewing machine. Now that the hems are done, the next step is going to be, if you want to have the optional belt, of course it's going to be sewing your optional belt. I'm going to make, as you did see on this tutorial, my fabric has two good sides, a black one and a yellow mustard one. I have in another cardigan I made a black belt, so I'm going to make this time the yellow mustard side in case I want to have that, and if I want to have the contrast black, I can use it from the other cardigan. So to make my belt, I'm going to put the belt, I cut it in one piece as wide as my fabric was. So I'm going to sew it right sides together like so. Also one of the shorter ends I'm going to sew all the way the longer edge, and I'm going to keep only one short edge to turn my belt on the right side. After that I'm going to stitch all around to give it a little bit of a more sharp edge. So to do that I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use my sewing machine, because there is no need to put so much thread from the serger, so I'm going to use my sewing machine to make my belt. Okay, my belt is so I have one short end closed and the long edge all the way to the other side also sewn, and only here I have the other short edge open. I pressed my belt, and I think that sometimes if I press the seam open I have a better turn or a better edge when the whole thing is turned. To turn it now to the other side, I am just going to push this short end that is closed a little bit to the inside, and then with my stick I'm going to use this more thicker part. I'm just going to push the whole thing inside out, and then if you get a little bit of bunching here you need to release it, and like this I'm going to turn the complete belt. I think it's a very easy way, and especially if you are going to top stitch your belt anyway, there is no need of hand stitches or something like that, you know, if you are leaving a gap somewhere in the middle. Also that you can of course close in by top stitching all the way, but I like this method and I'm using it a lot. And now we are at the end, and of course we will have to take our stick out like so. So the complete belt is turned, and one thing I like to do, because I use the thicker part of my chopstick, actually it's a stick that you use for your hair to make a bun. I'm going to come back with a sharper point. Well, it's not really sharp, but with a more thinner point. And I'm going back into the belt, and I want to come here, and I want to get those points a little bit sharp. No, you don't need to push too much because you don't want to poke a hole there. If it's necessary, with a pin, a little bit of fabric taken out is also okay. And I think I am satisfied with how it's looking. Maybe it was a good idea to take just a little bit of that fabric out from the corner, but it's okay. And I'm going to top stitch this. I'm going to try to give it a better corner. Well, now we need to take the chopstick out, and the next step is going to be to give a good press. As you can see, because my seam it was open, I think this is falling already very nice and sharp exactly on the edge. I'm going to give this a good press all the way, and at the end here I'm going to push. This is the end that is open. You can see I used the whole width of my fabric. This is the selvage, so I'm going to push this one inside. We don't want to see that, you know. I have it like I think it's 1 centimeter or something like that I need to push inside, and at the pressing table I'm going to give it a good press, something like this, and then I'm going to stitch all around the belt, and then I will be finished. Now the belt is done, as you can see it here. This is, I cannot even, yes, I think this is the end that we did just close by top stitching all the way around. And as you can see, because it's top stitched, it has just a little bit of more body, I think. It's not anymore so fluffy on the edges. And this is the other corner we sewn first. If you did see in the video, I used this little blade to help me go around the corners here where I have a few layers of fabric, so that my machine was able to stitch around and, you know, not pulling the fabric into the machine. So the belt is now done. I need to give it a little bit of steam to and press it nice, and then the last step is going to be making the loops, the belt loops. To attach the belt loops, I just folded my strip in 3 and then top stitch it 2 times. And to attach it, I measured, I know where I want to have it, but of course you can measure on yourself to be sure that it's coming where you want to have it. I want to have my loops, I want to have them 19 centimeters from the armhole, so somewhere here. And I'll put a pin there, and I know that here I want to have, it will be, is my waist. So I'm going to place my belt loop. Of course, it's going to be much shorter. It's going to come like this. The middle of my belt loop is going to be this pin I just measured. So I'm going to put it like so, with the folded ends top stitched on both ends, and then cut what is too much, the extra. I'm going to add one also on the other side, and then I am completely done. By adding the belt loops, I am done with my Chelsea cardigan. As you can see, I really like this method because they are laying very flat on the side seam, instead of the other method that, you know, the loop is a little bit hanging out. Like this, they are really laying very flat, and I really like it. So our Chelsea cardigan is done, is finished, as you can see, with a nice top stitch belt that is giving immediately a little bit more weight, with the beautiful color that is sewn with the back method, that you have a really nice edge here under the collar, and also a very nice edge here. And when your garment is moving around, even if it's getting open, you'll see a very nice edge on both sides. So this was the sewing tutorial for Chelsea cardigan. I know maybe some steps are a little bit too much for some of you, but for really a beginner, I think it's a great tutorial to start from the scratch and make a garment like this. The garment is very easy, of course. There are no closures, no buttons or zippers or things like that. So for a beginner, this is a great pattern, especially when starting sewing with the knits, because it's made for more stable knits, and you have the chance to try your hand on sewing with knit fabric. This concludes our sewing tutorial for Chelsea cardigan from Designer Stitch. If you have any questions or problems, or there are things that you did not understand, you can put them here in the comments under the video, and I'll do my best to answer them. Also, if you did enjoy the video and you found it helpful, maybe you can share it with your sewing friends. And don't forget, you can subscribe to my channel to be updated on the latest sewing pattern reviews I'm going to place, or new sewing tutorials. Don't forget to like the video, give me a thumbs up if you liked it and if you enjoyed it, and I would also love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you next time. Bye!